Hello everybody, I'm Shuvi. I am someone who has been playing Eternal Return for quite a while myself, and I'm definitely excited to see people who are interested in playing this game. I wanted to make a quick video for you guys to go over some of the basic things for Eternal Return, just to make it a little bit easier for both new players as well as some that may even be experienced in Eternal Return to get the hang of this game and make sure that they are able to start their journey in Lumia Island without too much of a hassle when they are very much starting off. To begin, Eternal Return is fundamentally a battle royale game. However, it's not like your standard battle royale games like Warzone or Apex where you get your weapon immediately the moment you touch down onto the map and you can start fighting. In this game, you need to build up your items as you start with essentially nothing and get to your power spike to be a lot more effective in eliminating other players in your lobby. As AJ puts it, this game is much more like a combination of League of Legends gameplay, so for those of you guys who have played League of Legends before, it will be very much familiar for a lot of the skills that are going to be implemented into the game, as well as some of the game mechanics such as a MOBA-esque style gameplay that League of Legends features, alongside battle rights. The fundamentals of this game comes essentially down to 5 things. The first one would be the characters, or as we would call them, test subjects. Second would be the items. The third would be game phases. Fourth would be objectives. And the last one will be the game progression. I'll go slightly in depth into these 5 topics so you guys can understand what you need to be doing when you start jumping into games. But just do remember, these 5 things are the basic fundamentals just so you guys can understand how the game's structured. There are a lot more things that you will have to experience as you continue to play the game. In the end, it is a video game that is multiplayer based, so a big portion of understanding the game just comes from putting time into playing the game and experiencing other things that come alongside it. Just a quick disclaimer though before we start diving into those 5 topics, this game's normal match MMR matchmaking system is not exactly up to par as a lot of other big MOBA games out there. For the first few games that you'll be playing, if you do decide to download the game and try it out for yourself, you will probably be placed against bots or other players who are just starting out the game. And then after those games are over, you're just going to be placed into games with pretty much whoever is queuing at the time. So that means you might even get queued up with someone like me who has 2,000 hours in the game. But that's alright, it's just all part of the learning curve. You will get more experience, and you will also get more experience playing up against really good players as well. So don't be discouraged by this. Just keep trying your best, keep learning from these games, and just do what you can. Alright, now that that's out of the way, let's go over the characters in Eternal Return. As of patch 0.56, we have about 50 characters, and all of them play very differently compared to one another. If you have played League of Legends before, you will most likely feel a familiarity between some of the skills that you see in League of Legends as well as the characters in Eternal Return. For example, a character named Lennox has a E that's called Whiplash. If you take a look at the animation, it's effectively what you would expect coming out from a Thresh Flay, and that is very true. So something like this is commonly seen throughout the game. You can feel familiarities between some of the skills that you would see in League as well as some of the skills you would see in Eternal Return. So if it helps, you can definitely compare the 2 games apart when it comes to these skills. The cool thing about Eternal Return though is that most of the time, every single character will be viable as long as you decide to put your mind to it and practice that character to the point where you can play them comfortably in games. The only reason why I say almost is because certain characters like Johann is a very support-driven character that is much more utilized in team modes. Now, it's not to say that he is not available in solos, but you have to go a lot more out of your way to make him work, and for what it is, he is kind of a meme when it comes to solo gameplay. I will recommend you though that you do finish the tutorial to grab 2 free characters. It should be Yuki as well as Hyejin as of 0.56, and some additional A coin for yourself to grab a new character. And alongside that, you can also enter the coupon code New Player Boost by going into the settings, the support button, and the use coupon button and typing in that code for 5,000 A coins. That's mostly enough to buy any character in the game, including the 2 free characters of Yugi and Hyejin you obtained through the tutorial. Next, let's go over the items. Every single character in Eternal Return has a specific set of weapon archetypes that they are able to bring into every single game. Each of these weapon archetypes will diversify your playing experience through the weapons you can craft, the weapon skills, as well as the stat scaling that each weapon brings. Alongside the weapons, you will also need your armor, and to build them up, you will need to move around the map opening boxes to obtain the materials for them. One important part about item looting is to take note of what are called loot clusters. Loot clusters is basically a set of boxes where it'll have a good distribution of the items that can be found within that specific zone. Another thing you can take advantage of are what are called saved plans. Saved plans are a tool you can use in-game to show you what items you must obtain and locations you need to go in order to build up a specific set of items. These save plans are made by community members, so feel free to try them out and experiment for yourself. Another thing that are going to be important for you to learn about items are transition items, as they help you scale relatively well into the late game. Lastly, recovery items are another important aspect of the game as well. You will want to know how to craft food, which recover HP, and drinks, which recover SP to keep yourself healthy throughout the game. Next, let's start talking through the game phases. For Eternal Return, we cycle through day and night cycles. Every time it changes, a certain location of the map closes off into what are called restricted areas. Every single player begins a game with a certain amount of red timer indicated by the number below the day and night cycle timer at the top of the screen in the game. In a restricted area, you will slowly lose that timer, and when it reaches 0, you will immediately head pop, so watch out for that. You can gain back the timer by getting kills or killing 2 specific objectives in the game. As with all battle royales, the map will continue to close until the final zone. At this final zone, for solos, you will enter a temporary safe zone phase where only 2 spots at the last zone will be considered safe spots. Each zone can be occupied by 1 person, and if more than 1 is inside it during this phase, everybody in that given zone will lose timer until there is only 1 person remaining in the zone. If there are only 2 players remaining, however, this phase is skipped entirely. After this, we go into the final safe zone phase. For team modes, duos, and squads, you skip the temporary safe zone phase entirely and just go straight into the final safe zone phase. This will be a very space-limited area in which every spot outside of it will be considered a restricted area. You will either need to fight to survive, or manage your time wisely to outplay your opponents. Another thing to note during these day and night cycles is that RNG items will spawn, and 2 in specific I want to mention are Meteorites and Tree of Life. Tree of Life will spawn at night 1 in Hotel and Cemetery, and in night 2 at Hospital and Forest. Meteorites will spawn throughout the game through each cycle changes until night 3. These items are used to build up into very powerful transition items, as I mentioned during the items section of this video, so once you start understanding when you are strong and what items are good for you, I do recommend you start contesting for these. Another source of these are animals such as high-level bears and wolves, which also have a chance to drop RNG materials, so make sure you look out for those and hunt them whenever you can. Next, let's go over the objectives. I mentioned RNG items just before, but we also have to mention the androids, or mini-bosses as you can say. 3 androids spawn throughout the game: Alpha, Omega, and Wikaline. Alpha spawns at the start of day 2 at predetermined locations. Omega spawns at the beginning of day 3 at the same predetermined locations as Alpha, and Wikaline will spawn at the start of night 3 at the entrance of Research Center from Avenue. Alpha drops a guaranteed mithril, Omega drops a guaranteed 4 score, and Wikaline drops a guaranteed VF blood sample and a first aid kit, while giving you a buff that bleeds enemies after dealing damage to them. Obviously, these are all very important objectives as they help you scale into the late game for your character. Another small side objective throughout the game are animals. I mentioned the bears and wolves earlier, but there are also chickens, there are also boars, dogs throughout the map that you are able to hunt to raise both your weapon levels that will make you stronger throughout the game the higher and higher it is, as well as giving you experience. Basically, you can obtain experience from anything, but animal hunts will also grant you those as well. So now that we've talked a lot about the game to the point where you can probably jump into a game without being absolutely confused about what's going on, I think I can finish this video off by talking about the stages of the game. In my personal opinion, I think there are two stages of the game, the early game and the mid to late game. In the early game, talks about the first 2 to 3 minutes where you will spawn in and just start grabbing materials to build up your items, as I mentioned earlier. Most standardized builds will try to finish all of their items to hit their power spike whenever they can, but there are rare builds where you are going to hit your power spike very early with maybe an item or two, and hope that you can kill somebody to set yourself a foundation to scale into the mid to late game. Regardless of your playstyle though, I will recommend you to finish your build by night 1. That is about the benchmark you should be hitting, and a goal for every single build that you, if you decide to experiment, should hope to hit. Any earlier is obviously better, just depends on the situation. Mid to late game is everything after, in which you're going to be starting to focus on your transition items, fighting other players, hunting animals, or continue to raise your levels through any other means. There are plenty of things to do in Eternal Return, which pretty much everything will give you experience, so as long as you are able to utilize that to your maximum potential, you will be able to stay caught up, or even stay ahead of other players. On that note, Eternal Return is essentially all about understanding what your position is in the game and how strong you are, or maybe even weak you are compared to others, and making forth the effort to, act upon that. All of that will come through experience, so just continuously playing the game, experiencing matchups, experiencing situations in which maybe you're ahead and behind will be very much beneficial for your success in Eternal Return. Hey, post-edit Shuvi here. I completely forgot to talk about augments. If you're familiar with League, augments are basically runes. For anyone who's not familiar with the rune system of League, augments are a set of passive buffs for your character that you are able to change every game. Some of these buffs will allow you to do more damage, tank, or support. Havoc, the red tree, is much more focused on damage. Fortitude, the blue tree, is more focused on tanking. And Support, the green tree, as its name suggests, is much more focused on supporting. Each game you can pick one core augment, 2 sub-augments from the same tree, and 2 sub-augments from another tree. When you first create your account, you won't have free access to editable augment pages, but as time goes on, you can make them. And on that note, I think that should be mostly it. And although the topics that I talked about in this video are mostly the basics, there are definitely some things that I personally had a rough time understanding as a whole when I first started playing, so I wanted to give you guys a video that kind of goes briefly into these topics. Now, of course, them being the basics, there's a lot more things that I could have talked about, but as for people who are starting out, I just wanted to kind of give you guys a little introduction of what this game's about. Now, this game is a lot more about experience, and as I mentioned earlier in the disclaimer, normal matchmaking system is not the greatest when it comes to Eternal Return, so you will struggle. I will definitely say that you will struggle, and as mentioned earlier too, ranked is a whole different thing. Ranked is a whole different ballpark when it comes to their matchmaking system, but as long as you hang in there, start learning how the game is played out, I will definitely say that this game is rewarding in regards to how you can progress. A lot of the characters feel very smooth when it comes to the gameplay style, so try to hang in there as much as possible. If you need any more help, obviously I'm available in Discord DMs, or you can also ask me to give you sources on any characters that you're interested in. I'm not the best at every single character myself, so if I can't help you, I will find your resources, so feel free to reach out to me, ask me quite literally anything about the game, and I will try my best to help you out and get the information that you need. Thanks for watching the video, and I hope to see you guys in game.